Picture this, a mysterious quarry in China, where ancient builders carved the largest stone blocks in human history for a colossal project, yet left them behind before their purpose was ever fulfilled. An entire city hidden beneath the earth, its tunnels and chambers sprawling far enough to shelter tens of thousands, and a cache of enormous bronze masks so elaborate and otherworldly in design that they seem to belong to a culture entirely apart from anything else we've ever found. All around the globe, there are archaeological discoveries that aren't just impressive, they're baffling. Some are so vast, so precisely made, or so unusual in their design that they seem to defy the capabilities of the civilizations we think built them. And yet, they are real. They're not myths, not rumors whispered down through time, but physical, measurable places and artifacts you can see, touch, and explore. They've been mapped, photographed, and studied by experts for decades, and still, in many cases, the explanations fall short. In this video, we're diving into 8 such mysteries, from ancient stone structures to alien-shaped figurines, from stone circles only visible from above to entire ancient graveyards now lying beneath the water. We'll look at what's been found, the history behind each discovery, the scale and complexity of the work involved, and why, despite modern technology and decades of research, so many questions remain unanswered. Some of these sites may leave you wondering how they were built at all. Others might have you picturing the lives of the people who made them, working with tools and knowledge that, on paper, shouldn't have been enough to create what we see today. So whether you're here for the history, the engineering marvels, or the lingering mysteries, get ready. We're about to explore some of the mind-blowing archaeological discoveries that no one can fully explain. The ruins of the Yangshan Quarry. On the outskirts of Nanjing in Jiangsu Province, China, sits the Yangshan Quarry, a site that has been a source of stone for centuries. Its history stretches back well before the Ming Dynasty, but it was during that period that the quarry became the stage for one of the most ambitious construction projects in imperial China. In the early 15th century, under the reign of the Yongle Emperor, the quarry was chosen to supply stone for his grand mausoleum, part of the elaborate Ming Xiaoling complex. Workers began carving directly into the hillside, shaping stone blocks on a scale that dwarfed anything used before in Chinese architecture. The project wasn't just large, it was unprecedented. The plan was to produce monumental pieces that would form a towering stele of eternal glory to honor the emperor. But what remains today is something altogether different. A vast quarry frozen mid-project with giant blocks still locked in place. 3 colossal stone blocks dominate the site, each partially carved and left in situ, as if the workers had downed tools one day and never returned. The largest of these, still attached to the bedrock, is estimated to weigh around 16,000 tons, making it the heaviest known stone block ever attempted in human history. To put that in perspective, it's heavier than some modern naval destroyers. Nearby, 2 other immense blocks lie in various stages of carving, each weighing several thousand tons. Their sheer size and intended use leave no doubt that this was meant to be a structure of staggering proportions. Historical records suggest these blocks were destined to form the massive stele for the Yongle Emperor's mausoleum, an upright monument that would have towered over the surrounding landscape, proclaiming the emperor's power and legacy for eternity. Instead, they remain embedded in the quarry floor, their rough, chiseled faces and sharp edges a silent reminder of the scale of the ambition and the abrupt halt to the work. The site today is a mix of raw, natural rock and precisely cut surfaces, creating an almost surreal contrast between nature and human engineering. To appreciate the ambition of the Yangshan project, you have to consider its engineering challenges. The largest block, at roughly 16,000 tons, exceeds the safe lifting capacity of even today's most advanced cranes. Transporting such a block over uneven terrain without modern machinery is hard to even picture. Imagine a team of Ming-era workers equipped with chisels, hammers, and wedges laboring under the hot sun. Each blow sends echoes bouncing off the quarry walls. Progress would have been slow and exhausting, every inch of stone removed by hand. Once separated from the bedrock, the blocks would need to be moved several kilometers to the mausoleum site. That alone would have required an enormous coordinated effort. Thousands of laborers, intricate sledging systems, and reinforced roads or rails of wooden beams constantly replaced as the blocks inched forward. Even smaller monoliths, like those at Baalbek in Lebanon, inspired debate about ancient moving techniques. The Yangshan blocks make those feats look modest by comparison. The logistics, hauling, lifting, and precisely placing such blocks would have been staggering, even assuming limitless manpower. Whether the plan was ever truly feasible is still up for debate, which makes the decision to start carving them in the first place all the more fascinating. So why were these megaliths never completed? The prevailing theory is simple: the blocks proved too heavy to move. It's possible that calculations, or the equivalent of them at the time, were made after work had already begun, revealing the near-impossible challenge ahead. Even if the blocks could somehow be shifted, lifting them into position would have been another monumental hurdle. There's also the possibility of changing political priorities. The Ming Dynasty was a period of immense construction projects, from the Forbidden City to sections of the Great Wall, and resources may have been diverted elsewhere. The Yongle Emperor's reign was marked by ambitious undertakings, but it also faced logistical limits. Some historians suggest the project was abandoned when the emperor or his engineers realized it was not only impractical, but risked damaging the entire mausoleum plan if it failed. Whatever the reason, the work stopped abruptly, leaving behind one of the most dramatic, what could have been moments in architectural history. Even now, the Yangshan Quarry raises more questions than it answers. The sheer size of the blocks challenges our understanding of what was considered possible in the Ming era. Even with modern technology, moving them intact would be a monumental, highly complex task. Was the project simply a case of ambition outpacing reality? Or did the builders have a specific, now-lost method for transporting such massive stones? If so, why hasn't any record of it survived? Standing at the base of these unfinished giants, it's easy to feel a sense of awe. They are physical proof of a project that reached for the limits of human capability and stopped just short. The blocks remain in place as if waiting for someone to finally figure out how to finish what was started over 600 years ago. And maybe that's the most intriguing question. Could it still be done today?
Derinkuyu, the underground city of stone.
From massive, immovable blocks left behind in a Chinese quarry, we now move to a very different kind of monumental construction. One you won't find towering over the landscape. In fact, you won't see it at all unless you know where to look. Because this next one was built in reverse. Instead of reaching for the sky, its builders carved deep into the earth, creating an entire city hidden underground. In 1963, a man in Cappadocia, Turkey, was renovating his basement when he broke through a wall and found something unexpected: a tunnel leading into a room carved straight out of rock. As he explored, more rooms appeared, connected by narrow corridors. This wasn't a small cave or storage space, it was the entrance to an enormous underground city. The city is now known as Derinkuyu, and it's one of the largest and deepest underground settlements ever found. It drops about 60 meters, nearly 200 feet underground, and is spread across multiple levels. These levels are linked by steep staircases and twisting passageways, some wide enough for groups of people, others so narrow you'd have to move single file. The rock in Cappadocia is volcanic tuff, soft enough to carve but stable when reinforced. People in this region have been digging homes and storage rooms into the rock for thousands of years, but Derinkuyu is on another level entirely. Its size and complexity mark it as something far beyond an ordinary shelter. As archaeologists explored Derinkuyu, they found it was built to sustain a community for long periods of time. Kitchens had blackened ceilings from centuries of cooking fires. Storage rooms for grain, oil, and wine lined the corridors. There were large communal halls, smaller family-sized rooms, and even spaces that looked like schools or meeting rooms. The city's ventilation system is one of its most impressive features. More than 50 shafts carried fresh air down through the different levels, keeping the lower chambers breathable. Some shafts also functioned as wells, meaning residents could access water without going to the surface. Animals had their place here too. Stables were carved into the rock on higher levels so livestock could be moved in easily. Massive round stone doors, up to a meter wide, could be rolled into place to seal off sections, protecting people from intruders. Religious spaces were also part of the layout. Archaeologists have identified chapels and prayer rooms, showing that life underground wasn't just about survival, it had a social and spiritual side as well. With enough space for as many as 20,000 people and their animals, the city needed careful planning for food storage, waste disposal, and general order. It wasn't a temporary hideout, it was a place designed to function like a real city, just hidden from view. Cappadocia has been home to many civilizations over thousands of years, including the Hittites, Phrygians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantine, Seljuks, and Ottomans. Its position on important trade routes brought wealth and cultural exchange, but also made it a target for invasion. The exact origins of Derinkuyu remain unclear. Some researchers believe the first levels could have been carved by the Phrygians in the 8th or 7th century BC. Others suggest the Hittites may have begun it more than 1,000 years earlier. Over time, later civilizations expanded and improved it. By the Byzantine period, Derinkuyu was definitely in use. Historical accounts and archaeological evidence suggest it provided shelter for early Christians fleeing persecution, and later for communities hiding from Arab raids. While defense is the most common explanation, there are other possibilities. The constant temperature underground made it ideal for storing food and wine year-round. It may have been used seasonally or as a secure stop for traders moving goods along the Silk Road. Some archaeologists believe Derinkuyu might have been connected by tunnels to other underground settlements, creating a network for safe travel, trade, and communication. Building an underground city like Derinkuyu would have been an enormous challenge. Even with the relatively soft volcanic rock, the sheer volume of stone that had to be removed is staggering. Everything carved out had to be hauled to the surface without modern machinery. Lighting was another issue. Workers relied on oil lamps, and managing smoke in a closed space required a well-planned ventilation system from the very start. The builders had to understand how to position shafts so air would flow properly through all the levels. The design also had to prevent collapse. Ceilings and walls were shaped to distribute weight evenly, and load-bearing pillars were left in key places. Some parts of the city are noticeably rougher and narrower, likely the oldest sections, while others are smoother and more spacious, showing improvements over generations. These details suggest the city wasn't built all at once. It grew over centuries as each new group adapted it to their needs. Most experts agree that Derinkuyu's main role was to protect people during dangerous times. Its hidden entrances, defensive stone doors, and self-sufficiency point to a design focused on survival during sieges or raids. But the scale raises bigger questions. Why was it built large enough for tens of thousands of people? Was life on the surface so risky that entire communities needed to live underground for months? Or did it serve multiple roles, blending defense with trade, storage, and seasonal living? What's certain is that Derinkuyu wasn't unique. More than 200 underground cities have been found in Cappadocia, and some show signs they could be connected by long tunnels. If that's true, there might have once been an entire hidden network stretching beneath the region. Who first imagined carving a city of this size under the earth? And what was the world above like that made them choose to live so far from the sun? The mystery of the Sanxingdui civilization. From the hidden tunnels of Derinkuyu, we move east to a very different kind of mystery, one not carved into the earth, but pulled from it in fragments of gold, jade, and bronze. Where Derinkuyu's secret was its vast underground scale, this next discovery shock came from its artistry. Objects so unusual and unfamiliar that they seem to belong to an entirely separate chapter of human history. The story of Sanxingdui begins in 1929 when a farmer in Sichuan province, China, was digging a ditch and unearthed a cache of jade pieces. At the time, the find was noted but not fully investigated, and the site lay mostly forgotten for decades. It wasn't until the 1980s that large-scale excavations began, revealing two massive sacrificial pits filled with thousands of artifacts. These objects immediately caught the attention of archaeologists, not just because of their number, but because of their style. They looked nothing like the artifacts of any known Chinese culture. Bronze masks with exaggerated features, towering human figures, gold ornaments, jade blades and strange animal shapes emerged from the soil, each piece more striking than the last. The discovery suggested the existence of an advanced, previously unknown Bronze Age civilization, one that would later be identified as Sanxingdui. The artifacts of Sanxingdui are unlike anything else in Chinese archaeology. Standing out among them are the enormous bronze masks, some with faces more than a meter wide. Many feature wide, staring eyes that project outward in tubes or slits, as if meant to watch over the world beyond. Others have sharply defined noses, large ears, and stylized mouths, all rendered in bold geometric shapes. Equally impressive are the bronze statues, including a figure over 2 meters tall thought to have held an ivory object now lost to time. Goldwork from the site includes intricate foil masks and decorative panels, while jade artifacts range from ritual blades to carved animal motifs. One particularly famous piece is the bronze tree sculpture, nearly 4 meters high, with curling branches and delicate leaves, astonishing in both scale and craftsmanship. The level of metallurgy here was advanced. The bronzes were cast in multiple sections and then fitted together with remarkable precision. What's striking is how different this style is from that of the contemporaneous Shang dynasty in central China. While Shan bronzes often feature compact, symmetrical designs and Tai Oti masks, Sanxingdui are expansive, abstract, and almost surreal. The two cultures clearly developed along very different artistic and symbolic paths. Most researchers believe Sanxingdui was part of the ancient Shu kingdom, which flourished in the Sichuan Basin around 3,000 years ago. This region was geographically separated from the Yellow River civilizations by mountains and rivers, which may explain its distinct cultural development. Despite its sophistication, Sanxingdui left behind no written records, at least none we've discovered. Much of what we know comes from the artifacts themselves and the layout of the site. Evidence suggests a complex society with skilled craftsmen, religious or ceremonial leaders, and far-reaching trade connections. Materials like ivory, marine shells, and certain stones found at Sanxingdui point to exchanges with distant regions. At some point, the city and its culture appear to have been abandoned. The reasons remain unclear. Environmental change, resource depletion, flooding, or conflict are all possibilities. Whatever the cause, Sanxingdui disappeared from history, leaving only its extraordinary artifacts as evidence of its existence. The uniqueness of Sanxingdui's art is its biggest puzzle. The large, protruding eyes on many masks and statues are unlike any other motif in Chinese antiquity. Were they depictions of gods, ancestors, or mythical beings? Some scholars think they represent a focus on seeing as a spiritual concept, while others suggest they're tied to local legends of divine rulers. What makes it stranger is the lack of direct links to other cultures of the time. The Shang dynasty, which was at its peak during Sanxingdui's flourishing, shared certain technologies, but not artistic style or iconography. This has led some to wonder whether Sanxingdui developed almost entirely in isolation, or whether it preserved influences from an even older, forgotten culture. There's also the question of why so many valuable objects ended up buried in sacrificial pits. Were they offerings to deities, symbols marking the end of the city's life? Or was the burial part of a planned ritual tied to the culture's disappearance? To this day, Sanxingdui remains one of the most mysterious Bronze Age discoveries in the world. Its artifacts force historians to rethink the diversity of early Chinese civilizations, and perhaps most intriguingly, they leave us with a question: was Sanxingdui truly alone, or just one surviving piece of a much larger puzzle that is yet to be uncovered?
The Big Circles of the Desert. From the intricate bronze masks of Sanxingdui, we head west to the deserts of Jordan and Syria, where another kind of mystery sprawls across the land, not in gold or jade, but in stone, laid out on a scale you can only truly appreciate from the air. The Big Circles first entered the archaeological record in the 1920s, when British Royal Air Force pilots flying over the deserts of Jordan and Syria noticed a series of huge, perfectly round formations on the ground. From above, they stood out immediately, geometric shapes etched into an otherwise rugged and irregular landscape. On the ground, however, they were far easier to overlook. Made of low stone walls blending into the terrain, they could easily be mistaken for natural rock formations. Early surveys recorded a number of these circles, but with limited resources and other priorities, they received only passing attention for decades. It wasn't until modern satellite imagery became widely available in the 21st century that interest surged again. Digital tools allowed researchers to pinpoint dozens of circles with remarkable accuracy, revealing just how consistent their dimensions were across different sites. Today, we know of at least a dozen large examples in Jordan and several in Syria. Even with high-resolution imagery, though, the circles remain enigmatic. No inscriptions, obvious cultural markers, or associated structures have been found that can definitively explain their origins or function. The big circles vary slightly in size, but average around 400 meters, 1,300 feet in diameter, roughly the length of 4 football fields laid end to end. Their walls are constructed from local stone piled together without mortar and stand only about a meter high. The thickness of the walls varies, but they are generally too low to serve as effective barriers for people or animals. Perhaps the most striking feature is their precision. Many of the circles are almost perfectly round, with deviations from a true circle measured in just a few centimeters, despite their massive size. This level of accuracy would be challenging even with modern surveying tools, let alone with whatever methods were available to their builders. Interestingly, none of the circles have clear openings or gates. If they once existed, they may have collapsed or been obscured over time. Their placement is also curious. Most are found in open, flat areas with no apparent relationship to rivers, trade routes, or settlements that we know of. Dating the circles is difficult because they lack organic material for radiocarbon analysis. Some archaeologists suggest they may be at least 2,000 years old, but others believe they could date back much further, possibly into the prehistoric period. The deserts of Jordan and Syria are rich in ancient structures, from Roman roads and fortresses to prehistoric cairns and stone alignments. These lands have been home to nomadic herders, settled farmers, and trading communities for thousands of years, each leaving their mark on the landscape. Other large-scale stoneworks in the region, often called desert kites, are known to have been used for hunting or herding animals, but the big circles don't fit this pattern. They're too open, too low, and lack the funnel-like entrances typical of kites. Some archaeologists have noted that smaller stone circles and geoglyphs in the Middle East sometimes mark burial sites or ceremonial grounds, but nothing inside the big circles indicates such a purpose. The absence of artifacts, tools, pottery, bones makes it hard to link them to any specific culture or
time period with certainty. One of the simplest theories is that the big circles were boundary markers, monumental outlines indicating the extent of tribal territory, sacred space, or seasonal grazing rights. Large visible shapes in the landscape could have served as a visual signal to neighboring groups. Another possibility is that they had ceremonial or ritual functions. A 400-meter wide enclosed space could have hosted seasonal gatherings, processions, or open-air rituals. The lack of permanent structures inside might fit with the idea of temporary events where people assembled only at certain times of year. A few researchers have floated the idea that the big circles were never meant to be practical enclosures at all, but rather symbolic or artistic expressions on a grand scale. Ancient geoglyphs akin to the Nazca lines in Peru. From surrounding hills, the circles would have been visible in their entirety. And if their builders believed in deities or spirits watching from above, the designs could have been meant for a non-human audience. The absence of entrances is one of the most puzzling aspects. It could suggest that access was controlled or that they were never intended for people or animals to enter in the first place. The greatest mystery of the big circles lies in their combination of size, precision, and apparent lack of function. Constructing a perfect circle hundreds of meters wide requires careful planning and considerable labor, even with simple stone walls. For a society to invest that effort, there must have been a reason, yet no clear purpose has emerged. Equally intriguing is their consistency. Whether in Jordan or Syria, the circles share similar dimensions and construction methods, hinting at a shared cultural origin or widespread tradition. But without datable material or inscriptions, it's impossible to say if they were built at the same time or over many centuries. Modern technology has made the circles easier to find and study, but it hasn't solved the puzzle. In many ways, the more we look at them, the more questions arise. Were they vast markers for travelers, stages for rituals lost to history, or signs of a shared ancient practice whose meaning has faded beyond recognition? For now, they remain silent outlines in the desert, their stones weathered by centuries of wind and sun. We can map them and measure them, but until new evidence comes to light, the purpose of the big circles will stay as open as the landscapes they inhabit.
The underwater cairn. From the wide, arid landscapes where the big circles stretch across the ground, we now head to a completely different setting beneath the calm surface of a freshwater lake in northern Israel. Here, sonar scans have revealed something massive and unexpected, a huge stone monument lying in total silence at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. In 2003, a team conducting a sonar survey of the Sea of Galilee, also known as Lake Kinneret, detected an anomaly on the lakebed. The readings showed a large, conical-shaped mass rising from the sediment about 9 meters high. At first, it could have been mistaken for a natural rock formation, but its regular shape suggested something man-made. When divers were sent down to investigate, they found a carefully built structure made entirely of large basalt stones. The formation was clearly intentional, with rocks arranged in a way that wouldn't occur naturally. The discovery was remarkable, not only for its scale, but also for its location, completely submerged in a place where no similar constructions are known. Its presence on the lakebed immediately raised questions. Who built it? What purpose did it serve? And perhaps most intriguingly, was it always underwater? The structure is a massive cairn, a mound of stones made from local basalt boulders, many weighing hundreds of kilograms each. These stones were stacked to form a cone, roughly 32 feet, about 10 meters high, and measuring nearly 230 feet, 70 meters in diameter at its base. Researchers estimate the cairn contains around 230,000 cubic feet of rock, with a total weight of approximately 60,000 tons. To put that into perspective, it's heavier than many modern naval ships. The stones appeared to have been placed without mortar, relying on weight and careful positioning to keep the structure stable. The cairn sits in relatively deep water for the lake, and while visibility is often poor, divers have noted that its slopes are steep and consistent, suggesting deliberate shaping. The arrangement is similar to large stone burial mounds or ceremonial cairns found on land in various ancient cultures, though nothing quite this large has been documented underwater in the region. Dating the cairn is difficult, as water and sediment have covered it for centuries. However, researchers believe it may date back to the Bronze Age, around 4,000 years ago, based on comparisons to similar stone structures on land. If the dating is correct, the monument could predate the lake's current shoreline. In ancient times, the water level may have been lower, meaning the cairn was originally built on dry land or in a marshy area near the shore. Rising waters over centuries could have gradually submerged it. As for its purpose, several theories exist. It may have been a burial mound built to honor a significant figure in the community. Alternatively, it could have served as a ceremonial site, a place of ritual or gathering for people living nearby. Another possibility is that it functioned as a landmark or harbor marker, guiding boats along the lake's edge. Without artifacts or inscriptions, all these theories remain speculative, but the effort involved in building such a monument suggests it was of great importance to the people who constructed it. Moving and placing 60,000 tons of basalt without modern machinery would have required immense organization and manpower. The builders would have needed to quarry the stones, transport them to the site, and stack them with precision to achieve the cairn's steep-sided conical shape. If it was built on dry land, sledges, rollers, or simple rafts could have been used to move the stones from nearby sources. The absence of mortar means that the structure's stability depended entirely on careful placement, which would have required both skill and experience. The scale of the cairn implies a coordinated community effort, possibly over many years.
It also suggests that the builders had a reason to invest so much labor in a project that didn't directly provide shelter or food. Whatever its purpose, it must have held significant symbolic or practical value to justify the work. The biggest question is whether the cairn was built in the water or on land. If the water level was lower in the past, the monument could have stood on a shoreline or hill, only to be submerged later due to natural changes in the lake's depth. If it was constructed underwater, that would imply an even more extraordinary level of skill and determination for a Bronze Age society. Equally mysterious is its cultural context. No other similar underwater monuments are known in the Sea of Galilee, and without artifacts or remains, linking it to a specific group is impossible for now. Until more evidence is found, either through excavation or new technology, the cairn will remain one of the most intriguing underwater discoveries in the region, raising the question, did its builders see the lake as it is today, or was the world around it entirely different?
The Great Enclosure of Great Zimbabwe. From the still submerged cairn of the Sea of Galilee, we travel south, far south, to the rolling hills of southeastern Zimbabwe. Here, rising from the earth like the walls of a long-forgotten fortress, stands one of Africa's greatest archaeological wonders, the Great Enclosure of Great Zimbabwe. Long known to local communities and tied to the ancestry of the Shona people, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe were first noted by outsiders as early as the 16th century. Later, in the late 1800s, European visitors reached the site and wrote breathless accounts of a vast stone city in the interior of southern Africa. Early interpretations were clouded by colonial bias. Some insisted it couldn't have been built by Africans. That claim didn't survive serious study. In 1929, archaeologist Gertrude Kyton Thompson led a careful excavation and concluded definitively that the builders were African, an assessment backed by every major study since. Great Zimbabwe lies in southeastern Zimbabwe in a landscape of granite hills and open valleys. The stone was right at hand. Giant granite outcrops or koppies naturally shed sheets of stone as they weather. That material became the raw feed for one of Africa's great architectural achievements. Within this broader city, spread across hills and valley floors, sits the Great Enclosure, the largest single ancient structure south of the Sahara. The Great Enclosure is an oval of dry stone masonry enclosing a space with a circumference of roughly 250 meters, about 820 feet. Its outer wall reaches more than 11 meters, around 36 feet at its highest, and at the base it can be over 5 meters thick. No mortar binds the blocks. Stability comes from precision. Courses of neatly dressed granite set with a slight inward batter so the wall leans gently toward its center of gravity. Inside the Great Enclosure, a second parallel wall curls around to create a narrow, curving passage. Moving through it, you're funneled along blind turns that limit what you can see ahead, a design that feels intentional, as if guiding processions or controlling who could approach inner spaces. The masonry isn't just functional. Parts of the wall display decorative coursing, including chevron and herringbone patterns, showing an eye for design as well as structure. The most iconic feature within is the conical tower, a solid, tapering stone structure about 9 meters tall and roughly 5 meters across at its base. It has no doorway or interior chamber. Its meaning is debated, but its presence is commanding. Around the tower and along the enclosure's interior are platforms, terraces, and the stone footings of circular huts that once stood here, likely built in Dhaka, earth and plaster over pole frameworks. Together, they speak to a busy, organized space, ceremonial, political, residential, or some combination of the three. Seeing the wall up close underscores the technical mastery. The builders quarried slabs from nearby copies, split them, likely using heat and quenching or iron tools, and trimmed the faces to sit tightly in courses. Even now, after centuries of weather and plant growth, much of the wall holds fast, an unmistakable sign of careful engineering and long practice. Great Zimbabwe flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries as the center of a kingdom that controlled inland trade routes linking gold fields and cattle-rich plateaus to the Indian Ocean coast. From ports like Sofala,
goods moved out across the Swahili coast and beyond, meeting traders from Arabia, India, and China. Excavations in and around the Great Enclosure and the broader site have turned up imports that make those connections clear. Chinese Celadon porcelain, Persian glazed wares, glass beads from the Indian Ocean trade, and Arab coins. Alongside them are local products, iron tools, copper and gold ornaments, and the famous carved soapstone birds. Those soapstone figures, probably symbolic or dynastic emblems, are so central to the site's identity that a stylized version appears on Zimbabwe's national flag today. The country's very name likely comes from a Shona phrase, Zimba Zamabe, houses of stone. Population estimates for the city vary, but at its height, thousands of people lived among the hilltop complexes and valley enclosures. Elite areas were defined by stone architecture. Most residents lived in dhaka houses. Metallurgy was practiced nearby. Iron smelting and gold working left behind slag and crucibles, while cattle, a key measure of wealth and status, grazed the surrounding lands. By the mid-15th century, Great Zimbabwe's influence waned. Causes proposed include overgrazing around the capital, shifts in trade routes toward rival centers, political realignments toward the Mutapa state to the north, or simple resource strain across the local environment. The stone walls remained as the population moved on. What precisely was the Great Enclosure for? Three main ideas dominate. First, a royal residence. The high walls, controlled passages, and symbolic conical tower point to a space reserved for the ruler and court. Second, a religious or ceremonial center. The processional feel of the inner passage, the decorative courses in the tower suggest public rituals or initiation rites may have taken place here. Third, a combined royal ritual precinct where political authority and religious performance reinforced each other. The conical tower fuels much of the debate. Some see it as a stylized granary, an emblem of abundance and the king's role as provider in a cattle and grain economy. Others view it as a purely symbolic monument, a visual anchor for ceremonies. Without inscriptions, the argument rests on context and comparison, and the enclosure allows for more than one reading. Another question, how did builders achieve this precision without written plans or mortar? The answer likely lies in deep craft traditions, teams of stonemasons working from practical templates, refining courses by eye and habit, and passing techniques down across generations. The decorative coursing suggests builders weren't just stacking stone, they were composing with it. For a long time, the site's story was muddied by myths, Phoenicians, lost tribes, outsiders. Those claims don't stand up to the archaeology. Great Zimbabwe is the work of African builders, almost certainly Shona ancestors who harnessed local materials, regional trade, and skilled labor to raise something unique for its time and place. And yet, a final tempting question lingers. Was Great Zimbabwe the crowning achievement of a well-known tradition, or the last visible trace of a wider architectural culture whose other great works have vanished from the record? The walls don't say, but they make a powerful case that there's more left to learn. From the towering walls of Great Zimbabwe, we move back in time.
The Ubaid lizard figurines. Far back to one of the earliest known civilizations in Mesopotamia, here in the ancient settlements of southern Iraq, archaeologists uncovered a set of artifacts that have puzzled researchers for over a century. Small clay figurines with human bodies and reptilian faces. The Ubaid lizard figurines were first uncovered in 1919 during excavations in southern Mesopotamia, in what is now Iraq. These digs, conducted at sites such as Tel Alubid, and Eridu, were part of British-led archaeological expeditions searching for the earliest phases of Mesopotamian civilization. The Ubaid period, now dated to roughly 5000 to 4000 BC, predates the rise of the Sumerian city-states and is considered one of the foundational cultures of the region. Excavations revealed the figurines buried among the remains of mud brick buildings, ceremonial structures, and domestic debris layers. They were often found alongside finely decorated pottery with geometric designs, agricultural tools, and other small ritual objects. Over the next few decades, more examples were recovered as digs continued across southern Mesopotamia, eventually totaling dozens of specimens. The figurines' strikingly non-human heads caught researchers' attention immediately. While figurines from other ancient cultures often depicted women, deities, or generic human forms, these had reptilian faces with elongated muzzles, large almond-shaped eyes, and smooth, almost scaled surfaces. At first, archaeologists speculated they might represent gods or supernatural beings tied to Ubaid religion. Others thought they could depict real individuals wearing ceremonial masks. Whatever the answer, the consistency in their design suggested they weren't random artistic experiments, but part of a shared cultural idea. The civilization that produced these figurines was remarkable in its own right. The Ubaid culture stretched across much of southern Mesopotamia and eventually influenced northern Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. Its people practiced irrigated agriculture, cultivating barley and wheat, and kept livestock such as cattle, sheep, and goats. Settlements often included large tripartite temples, rectangular buildings divided into 3 parallel halls, suggesting organized religion. They also produced distinctive painted pottery with black or dark brown geometric patterns on a buff background. Trade connections reached far down the Arabian Peninsula, evidenced by imported goods and shared cultural traits. The Ubaid period saw the beginnings of social stratification, larger houses for elites, specialized craft production, and centralized temple administration. Yet, despite this complexity, the Ubaid people left no written records, leaving archaeologists to reconstruct their beliefs and social systems entirely from artifacts like the lizard figurines. The figurines vary in size from a few inches to just over 20 centimeters tall, and are made from clay, either baked in a kiln or sun-dried. While the bodies are unmistakably human in proportion, the heads are not. The faces are elongated with tapered snouts and wide, unblinking eyes. Some heads are smooth and rounded, others have ridges or crests running from brow to crown. Many of the figurines are dressed, with clothing indicated by incised lines and patterns. Belts, skirts, and elaborate neckwear appear on some, while others are nude. A particularly striking subset depicts the figure cradling an infant. In several cases, the infant shares the same reptilian features as the adult, hinting at a narrative or symbolic meaning we no longer understand. The craftsmanship ranges from simple and stylized to finely detailed, suggesting they were made by different artisans or for different purposes. But their shared features point to a consistent concept, whether mythological figures, ancestral spirits, or costumed participants in ritual ceremonies. The fact that many were found in or near domestic spaces raises another question. Were these objects household talisman, private devotional items, or toys imbued with symbolic meaning? Without written explanations, we can only speculate, but the attention to detail and recurring motifs suggest they held significance beyond decoration. The true purpose of the Ubaid lizard figurines remains unresolved. Mainstream theories lean toward religious or symbolic roles, perhaps representing deities connected to fertility, protection, or the natural world. Reptiles, particularly snakes, were sometimes associated with creation, renewal, and the underworld in later Mesopotamian myths, so the reptilian traits might carry similar meanings here. Some scholars have suggested the figurines might be linked to shamanistic practices, with the lizard-like appearance symbolizing a transformation or connection to animal spirits. Others think they could represent masks worn in ceremonies, immortalized in clay for ritual or commemorative purposes. Beyond academic circles, the figurines have sparked more speculative ideas. Ancient astronaut theorists point to their non-human appearance as evidence of extraterrestrial contact, while fringe narratives imagine them as portraits of a now vanished reptilian race. These interpretations lack supporting evidence, but persist in popular media because the figures are so visually unlike typical human depictions from prehistory. What we do know is this: they are deliberate, consistent, and unique to the Ubaid cultural sphere. Whether they were stylized art, mythological icons, or embodiment of a belief system we can no longer reconstruct, the Ubaid lizard figurines remain one of the most enigmatic relics of the ancient Near East. Were these figurines simply an artistic style, a symbolic shorthand everyone in Ubaid society would have understood? Or do they preserve the outline of myths, gods, or ideas that disappeared long before writing emerged?
Until we find more evidence, their smooth clay faces will keep their secrets. From the small but enigmatic obeyed lizard figurines, we turn to something on a far larger scale. Ancient dolmens. Structures so massive that they've stood for thousands of years in landscapes from Ireland to Korea. Built from stones so heavy it's hard to imagine moving them without modern machinery, these are the dolmens, megalithic monuments whose sheer size and global distribution make them one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. A dolmen is a type of megalithic structure, usually made up of 2 or more upright stones, supporting a massive horizontal slab known as a capstone. The result looks a little like a table made of stone, hence the nickname stone tables in some regions. Many dolmens were originally covered by earth or smaller stones to form a burial mound, which is often eroded away over time, leaving only the stone skeleton behind. What makes dolmens especially intriguing is how widespread they are. They appear across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and even parts of Africa. In Western Europe, dolmens are common in places like Brittany in France, Wales, and Ireland, where some date back more than 5,000 years. In the Middle East, examples stand in Jordan, Israel, and Syria. Farther east, they appear in Korea, where thousands dot the countryside, and in India's southern states. Some of the most famous examples include the Polnabron dolmen in Ireland, with its weathered limestone uprights and a capstone weighing over 70 tons. The Bronzhill dolmen, also in Ireland, whose massive capstone is estimated at more than 100 tons. And the Gangkwa dolmens of Korea, which range from small table-like structures to huge monuments with capstones over 7 meters long. The sheer size of these stones makes their creation astonishing. In some cases, capstones weigh more than the largest blocks used in the Egyptian pyramids. Moving and positioning them would have required not only tremendous manpower, but also a sophisticated understanding of leverage, balance, and construction. Especially impressive given that most dolmens date from the Neolithic or early Bronze Age, long before the invention of the wheel in many of the cultures that built them. Dolmens typically consist of upright stones, often called orthostats, set firmly into the ground to form a chamber. On top of these uprights rests the capstone, which can weigh anywhere from a few tons to well over 100. The precision needed to position such a stone so that it sits securely on its supports, remarkable, especially when the only available tools would have been made from stone, wood, or bone. Archaeologists believe builders likely used a combination of ramps, wooden rollers, levers, and raw manpower to move the stones from their source to the site. In some cases, stones may have been quarried locally. In others, they appear to have been transported from kilometers away. Positioning the capstone may have involved building an earthen ramp up to the top of the uprights, sliding the stone into place, and then removing the earth once the structure was stable. The most widely accepted theory is that dolmens served as burial or ceremonial sites. Excavations have revealed human remains, pottery, tools, and ornaments in and around many dolmens, suggesting they were tombs for important individuals or family groups. Some may also have served as communal burial sites, reopened multiple times to add more remains. The layout of dolmens varies, with some forming small chambers that could have been sealed with additional stones, while others are part of larger megalithic complexes. In some regions, alignments with celestial events, such as the solstices, suggest they may have held astronomical or ritual significance. The careful choice of location, often on hilltops or in prominent positions in the landscape, reinforces the idea that they were meant to be seen from a distance, acting as lasting monuments to the people buried there. What remains unexplained is how so many widely separated cultures across continents and separated by oceans ended up building structures so similar in design. There's no evidence of direct contact between Neolithic Ireland and Bronze Age Korea, yet both produced dolmens with strikingly similar forms and functions. Was this simply a case of convergent development, where different societies independently arrived at the same solution for honoring the dead? Or could it hint at older shared traditions passed along migration routes stretching back to prehistoric times? The sheer engineering challenge adds to the puzzle. These were communities without metal tools, draft animals, or wheeled transport in many cases. Yet they could quarry, transport and precisely place stones weighing dozens of tons. The planning and labor organization required implies strong leadership and a social structure capable of mobilizing large groups for a single monumental goal. And while many dolmens were used as tombs, the symbolic and cultural meanings behind them are harder to pin down. Were they markers of territory, ceremonial gateways, or representations of myths now lost? Until more evidence comes to light, dolmens will remain both a testament to human ingenuity and a reminder that even in prehistory, people found ways to make monuments that would endure for millennia. Which of these captured your imagination the most? Do you have your own theory or think we missed a site that deserves a place on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this journey through some of the world's most mysterious ancient sites, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We have plenty more coming. Lost cities, forgotten cultures, and the strange, enduring questions history leaves behind. As always, until next time, stay curious.